Welcome everybody to Tolerance, Equality, and Respect for All People and the Enlighten America 2020 Essay Contest Virtual Award Ceremony.
Welcome everyone. We're going to watch a short video. Welcome everyone. Hope you enjoyed the video. To introduce you to B'nai B'rith and the 175 plus year history, I want to welcome all of you to our B'nai B'rith program of tolerance, equality, and respect for all people, and we appreciate you joining us. For over 176 years, our B'nai B'rith International Jewish Organization has advocated for human rights and the continual need to abolish intolerance and bigotry here in the United States and around the world. Please remember that B'nai B'rith proudly created the Anti-Defamation League in 1924 right here in Georgia. In 1925, B'nai B'rith also proudly helped establish the B'nai B'rith Youth Organization for high school students, and in 1926 established the Hillels at colleges and universities all across the United States. We helped to initiate these vibrant youth organizations, which are still going strong today. And since 1971, B'nai B'rith's delegation has spoken at the United Nations on behalf of Jews around the world. B'nai B'rith is a proud advocate of developing affordable senior housing with units built over the years in Pennsylvania, Florida, and Texas as examples. We are now involved with a new project development, possibly here in Cobb County, Georgia. As a Jewish organization, B'nai B'rith believes in Tikkun Olam, with community action and humanitarian efforts that give back to community for helping those in times of need. We help during humanitarian crisis, helping with food and shelter. Now, it is with great pleasure that I introduce you to our 2020 Enlighten America Chairman, Mr. Vic Anapol, who will share with you about the 2020 Enlighten America Student Essay Contest. Vic has chaired this program for the last few years with true dedication and concern for the youth of today, along with others on the committee. Welcome.
Thank you, Helen. We thank all the students who submitted essays this year and the many folks that work behind the scenes in the areas of judging, fundraising, publicity, etc. Enlighten America 2020 focuses on the concepts of tolerance, equality, and respect for all people. It stresses civic harmony over violence and equality over prejudice. This year, we targeted students in grades 7 through 9. We also judge entries within each grade category. Students were asked to reflect on the contest theme, respect for diversity in race, religion, national origin, gender, disability, and sexual orientation. They were asked to write about the issues of bigotry and prejudice. to consider how these issues have been addressed in the recent years and how they have affected our quest for coexistence among our friends and neighbors. By addressing these issues, we strongly believe that we become a more unified and stronger nation. This year, we asked students also to think about a quote attributable to a world leader, its meaning and how it relates in today's society. They could also select a current event and discuss its relevance to the issues of prejudice and bigotry. In addition to defining the problem, we asked that they address the challenges that might be faced in implementing solutions and improvements. And finally, we asked all participants to sign a pledge that they would not participate in discriminatory behavior and to speak out if such actions were observed. Again, thank you, and I'm pleased to welcome Marcus Brodsky, who will speak on behalf of our essay judges. Marcus?
Thank you so much, Vic. It's my pleasure to speak today on behalf of the judges, whose names you will now see on the slide in front of you. Mimi, myself, Rabbi Jeff Feinstein, Shelley, Melinda, Scott, Margot, Chick, Roz, Cindy, Ruthie, Judy, Eric, Tony, Jill, and Margie. We had the enviable task of reading all of the submissions, and there were a great number of them from many different schools and many different folks that participated in this year's contest. And it was really, really amazing to see so much in the way that students were creative. I don't know if you guys are able to see me, but I am here. And my video is on. So yeah, there was everything from essays to screenplays to poems. It was really, really powerful to see how creative these students were and how they really took the prompt to heart and to talk about their personal experiences of their family, some as first generation or second generation immigrants, as those in the LGBT community or otherwise. And it was really, really powerful. And as somebody who's worked in the nonprofit space for many years with students, I used to work at the Anti-Defamation League, and we have a program, No Place for Hate. This was super powerful, and I'm really glad that I was given the opportunity to participate as a judge. This was the second year that I've served as a judge, and I can tell you that the quality of these essays were even better than last year's. And so kudos to all of the winners, but especially kudos to everyone who participated, because it was really important to get more and more students to be involved with this program, and we're so glad that so many of you participated. So I'm going to move on to our honorable mentions list. There were so many great essays and entries into the contest that we highlighted the following individuals: Ryan, Ismarie, Serena, Nikhil, Vanati, Ari, Hannah, Sophia, Kennedy, Iman, Ian, Owen, Natalie, Summer, Benjamin, Jessica, and Kaylee. Congratulations. We wish to recognize you so very much as honorable mentions for the contest. Your essays were very close to receiving top prizes, and we wanted to just take a moment and recognize you. Thank you for participating. And you'll see that you can see from where in the metro Atlanta area all of these students are from. We've got folks from Chamblee and Atlanta, Duluth, College Park, Decatur, Dawsonville, you name it. So thanks so much for everyone for participating. And now I'm going to read off and I'll do our first congratulations to our third place winner. This is our 7th grade winner. Winner of a $150 prize is Simran Gupta of Cumming, Georgia, for her essay, Welcome to America, the Land of Opportunity for All. Everyone, please, I'm going to ask Simran to hop on Zoom so we can all give her a very, very warm round of applause.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Very good.
All right. Next, our 8th grade 3rd place winner of a $150 prize is Kimberly Pierre of Dunwoody, Georgia, for her essay, Not Just a Stereotype. Everyone, please give a warm welcome and round of applause for Kimberly. Congratulations, Kimberly. Thank you so much. Turn on your video. Okay, we might be having some difficulties. Maybe at the end we can do everybody. We have everybody who's one of the winners also join us. Congratulations, Kimberly. Very well deserved. I really liked your essay. Our ninth grade third place winner of a $150 prize is Emily Jane Kurtz of Dawsonville, Georgia, for her essay, Humans, Nature to Hate. Everyone, please welcome Emily Kurtz. Congratulations, Emily. Well done.
Turn on your video, Emily.
Is it on?
There you are. Congratulations. Well done. Kudos to you. Very well done. It's now my pleasure to hand the baton over to fellow judge and wonderful, amazing person, Ruthie Levy, owner of And Thou Shalt Read Bookstore in Roswell. Ruthie, take it away.
Thank you. As the owner of And Thou Shalt Read, it was my pleasure not only to judge for my 4th year, but also to donate books to the winners. So for the 7th graders, we have Real Kids, Real Change, Real Challenge, true stories about young kids your age who use their head, their heart, and their courage to prove that one person can make a difference. An example was an 11-year-old girl who saved many lives because she knew the warning signs of a tsunami. For the 8th graders, we're giving Freedom Summer. It's the story of the famous summer where many people went down to Mississippi to help register voters and create freedom schools. The famous James Chaney, Goodman, and Mickey Schwerner were civil rights activists who were murdered by the KKK when they went down to Mississippi. And for the 9th graders, we have Courage to Be Yourself, 26 first-person accounts about teens whose lives, with searing honesty, inspire readers to reflect on their own lives, work through their problems, and learn who they really are. These are challenges that you will face in your lives today. And last but not least, we're also donating these books, March 1, 2, and 3, to one of the schools that participated. Thank you so much. Now, let's talk about our winners of the 2nd place awards. Slide. Our first 2nd place winner of a $250 prize is Noah Zussman of Sandy Springs, Georgia, for her essay, Enlighten America. Noah, please turn on your video so we can see you and applaud. Thank you so much for participating and for your excellent essay. Next. We have Genesis Isom of Atlanta, Georgia, for her essay, Judgment Day, from Woodward Academy. Congratulations, a $250 award and a copy of Freedom Summer. Genesis, please turn on your camera and your sound. Okay, great. And our third 2nd place winner is Austin Korn of Dawsonville, Georgia, for his essay, Yoda versus Prejudice. A very interesting essay. So Austin also won a $250 prize and the book, Courage to Be Yourself. Austin, please turn on your video so we can applaud you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Austin. Outstanding. Good work. And now let me introduce Lee Tannenbaum, who is First Vice President of Communications for B'nai B'rith Lodge here in Atlanta.
Hello. Let's see. I'm still seeing Ruthie. There she goes. I hope you can see me now, but I have the distinct pleasure to award our 1st place winners, And I'm very pleased to be able to award the 7th grade first place winner of a $350 prize to Sophie Grace Thomas of Decatur, Georgia, for her essay, A Love-Driven Mindset, A Guide to Peace. Sophie, can you come on with me
Yes,
right
thank
now?
you.
Okay. Sophie, I wanted you to just tell us in just a few words, what do you mean by love-driven mindset? What did you pull together in your essay? It was very interesting.
So in my essay, I really focused on how love-driven mindset of everybody in the community can create a world where everybody lives in civic harmony, and we need everybody to care about one another enough for us to be able to get anywhere.
Beautiful. That's beautiful. Okay. Next, I want to introduce the 8th grade first place winner of a $350 prize. Oops. The 8th grade winner is Anjana Murthy. Did I say that right?
Yes, Anjana Murthy.
Anjana Murthy. And your essay was very, very personal, a light in the dark. Can you tell us, Anjana, a little bit about what you wrote about and what it meant to you?
Yeah, sure. So my essay was centralized around the story of my grandparents' journey to America from India, along with like the challenges and new experiences that came along the way. And it's personally important to me because it symbolizes my heritage and the brave people who came before me that endured great discomfort and strain in order to provide a better life for me and generations to come.
Beautiful. Thank you very much for sharing your family's history with us through your essay. Thank you very much. Okay, next, I would like to invite our 9th grade first place winner of a $350 prize, Ilana Levenberg of Atlanta, for her essay, The Need for Truth in Education of Racism's Past and Present. Ilana, I found your essay very interesting, where you talked about your personal experience learning about racism in the schools. Can you tell us a little bit about why you say there's a need for truth in education?
Yeah. As is known, we do not live in a perfect world. In an imperfect world with an imperfect society, there will always be people who deny the issues that we face in the world today. If and when the issues of recognition of racism is brought to light, there will always be people who continue to deny the facts. These people may form their own movement to fight against the equality that every culture is trying to gain. This can turn into a verbally abusive, or worse, violent situation. Eventually, even if the issue of racism is solved and we are able to live in a more equitable world, we know that there will be other issues that will most certainly arise. About 8 years ago, when I was in 1st grade, I learned about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and his fight for equality. My class spent about a day learning about the struggles of the leaders of the civil rights movement as they fought for racial equality. After that day in class, I went home thinking that racism did not exist in the world today and that Martin Luther King made it disappear. It was not until 3 years later that I visited the Center for Civil and Human Rights that I realized that the issue of racism still affects Black America, so it affects white America as well today. Those of us that have been watching the news recently know that many adults are currently having an interesting conversation about race and racism in this country. What has been frustrating to me is to note how many, or rather how few, people my age are having that same conversation. Since we spend the majority of our day in school, now is the time for our schools to help enable this dialogue. Now is the time to enlighten the children of our future about the current imperfections in our world. Let us enable and empower them to turn into the leaders they are destined to become.
Thank you. Thank you, Ilana. Okay. You may be asking yourself, the attendees, the family and friends, how can you read these wonderful essays that were submitted to the 2020 Enlighten America contest? Really, all you have to do is to Google Enlighten America 2020 essay contest, and you can find some articles on the Atlanta Jewish Connector, on Patch, and there was a recent one that just came out Friday, I believe, on the Atlanta Jewish Times. So you can also go to the B'nai B'rith Atlanta Facebook page, and you can find a link to a news release with links to all these, to the winning essays. They really, really are wonderful. We wish we could have had, you know, all 9 winners read their essays, but there really just wasn't enough time. At this point, I would like to introduce our B'nai B'rith treasurer, Harry Lutz, who will introduce our guest speaker.
Thank you, Lee. We're all in for a real treat this afternoon, as our speaker often convenes with world leaders on tolerance, equality, and respect for all people. As the Chief Executive Officer of B'nai B'rith International, Dan Mariaschin has met with countless heads of state, prime ministers, foreign ministers, opposition leaders, influential members of...
Very good. Okay. Well, Harry, thank you for the kind introduction and for sharing the video about B'nai B'rith before we began today's program. I'm delighted to be with you in Atlanta via Zoom today, and add my congratulations to the winners and all of the participants in the 2020 contest. I'm happy that others around the world have also tuned in to see this program. Thank you to the leadership of the Achim Gate City Lodge for inviting me to be with you today. Your lodge has had an important community presence in the B'nai B'rith family for many years. Several of your community projects, such as Pinch Hitters, Unto Every Person There Is a Name, and Enlighten America, have been recognized by our International President, Charles Kaufman, with the 2019 B'nai B'rith President's Award. It is certainly well deserved. I hope that this virtual visit is only temporary and we'll be able to see each other in person soon. Now, we're simply thrilled to see the impact the Enlighten America essay contest has made in Atlanta. We're grateful for the many sponsors and dedication by the coordinators and judges to bring us to this celebration. And I have to tell you, we are truly impressed by the creative work that these students have produced. It's especially meaningful that this program is being held just days after the anniversary of the historic March on Washington of August 28th, 1963. The official name was the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom, and it brought 250,000 people to Washington, D.C. to advocate for the civil and economic rights of African Americans. It was here that Martin Luther King Jr.'s standing in front of the Lincoln Memorial delivered his historic I Have a Dream speech, in which he called for an end to the scourge of racism. During the Civil Rights Movement, Jews stood side by side with African Americans to fight for a better and more just America. The Jewish value of tikkun olam, which was mentioned earlier, that is, to repair the world, is and was not just a poetic idea, but very much an imperative. In 1964, during the height of the tensions and violence in the United States, 2 white men, Andrew Goodman and Michael Schwerner, were viciously murdered by the Ku Klux Klan, along with a black man, James Chaney, for helping African Americans of Mississippi to vote. Those 2 white men were Jewish. American blacks and Jews jointly battled Jim Crow laws and successfully partnered to enable the Civil Rights Act. In 1965, Abraham Joshua Heschel, an instrumental advocate for civil rights, was among the rabbis who joined black leaders marching in Selma, Alabama. Heschel said at the time, Martin Luther King is a sign that God has not forsaken the United States of America. I call upon every Jew to hearken to his voice, to share his vision, to follow in his way. It's important to note that Jews fought for the civil rights of African Americans, not only because it was the right thing to do, but also to speak for our own community's civil rights. Anti-Semitism has long existed in the United States and was very much alive during this time and well before. The tragic story of Leo Frank, for example, took place in Atlanta in 1913. Leo Frank, a young Jewish man, also ironically happened to be president of B'nai B'rith Achim Gate City Lodge. Leo was wrongly accused of murder, and while in jail was kidnapped by a mob and brutally lynched. This great tragedy and enormous miscarriage of justice is a stark reminder to us all, even over 100 years later, about the dangers of hate and prejudice. Here's one stark example of the anti-Semitism that our community experienced in this country, which we found in the B'nai B'rith archives. This letter from March 1947 was part of a letter written by the manager at a hotel in Winona Park, Minnesota, in answer to a Jewish man inquiring about rooms at one of their properties. And I quote, "Dear Mr. Nathan Scharf, I just returned from a business trip and found your letter awaiting me. First, due to restrictions around our lakes, I must know whether you are Jewish or not, as Jewish people are not allowed." That this letter was written only 2 years after the atrocities of the Holocaust is astounding, and it serves as a powerful reminder that Jews may have been accepted in some places and in some professions, but anti-Semitism was very much alive and well. In those days, we knew that there were quotas for university and college admissions, or to medical school or law school. We knew that there were certain neighborhoods where Jews could not buy a house. We were aware that certain fields like insurance or banking or the auto industry or even advertising were inhospitable or closed to Jewish job seekers. Now, all of this is personal for me as well. I'm a child of the 1950s and the early 1960s. I was raised in New Hampshire. There were 4 Jewish families in my town. That's it. And about 25 families within a 25-mile radius. By comparison, there was 1 African American family in the entire area. In those years, a decade after the Holocaust, anti-Semitism in America was of a far different variety than that which we witness and experience today. In our town, there were folks who were raised to believe that all Jews were rich, or who cheated, or who took advantage of their customers. Jewing somebody down was a phrase in use in many places in this country in those days. And many of those who employed such denigrating terminology had never even met a Jew before. Indeed, ours was the first family of Jews that many in our town had ever come in contact with. But we were fortunate. Over time, our best friends, and they became lifelong friends, came from the non-Jewish community. My parents, who owned a small women's clothing store, had the respect of their non-Jewish competitors, the local bank president, the school principal, and so many others. My classmates' parents were open-minded and they were supportive of the tiny Jewish minority in their midst. Let me just give you one example. In the 5th grade, and this is 1959-60, in the 5th grade, I was the only Jewish student in our middle school, the only one. There were probably 175 or so students. And one day, my teacher, Mrs. Kellum, who had been teaching for more than 30 years, and probably I was the first Jewish student she had, called me out of the class. You can imagine, if you're called out of class in the 5th grade or any grade, you start to worry, what is it that I did? Well, it wasn't anything I did. Mrs. Kellum wanted me to know that a swastika, the symbol of the Nazis, a swastika had been found in the boys' bathroom, and that the custodian had washed it off, and that she just wanted me to know what had happened and that they had taken care of it. I'll never forget that incident, never forget that time that Mrs. Kellum called me out. Mrs. Kellum was not Jewish, but she clearly cared about the fact that I was Jewish and that I would be insulted, and that I would be offended or perhaps frightened by the fact that this swastika had been put on the wall in that bathroom. So this story teaches us a lesson about how we make progress. Again, my teacher was not Jewish, but she cared enough about this issue to do something about it. In order to fight successfully against discrimination and racism, we need allies and we need friends, because all of us have to work together. B'nai B'rith recognizes that our fight on behalf of the Jewish people includes the same fight for all religious and ethnic groups to live without fear. Jews and blacks as minorities found common cause. Based on our own history and the plight of African Americans, these experiences brought us together to try and create a better and mutually respectful society. The late Congressman and civil rights legend John Lewis was the youngest speaker at the March on Washington in 1963. Decades later, we, B'nai B'rith, created the Martin Luther King Heschel Award in honor of Dr. King and Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel. In 1988, we presented this award to Congressman Lewis and former Supreme Court Justice Arthur Goldberg in recognition of their role in promoting civil rights together. I believe that Congressman Lewis's comments when receiving that award are especially meaningful at this moment. He said that, quote, many of the people who participated in the civil rights marches during the 1960s were Jewish. That made a lasting impression on me, he continued, but I do not want to simply reminisce about those days. We have to find new ways to reach out in friendship. We are one people, one family, one world. After the brutal killing of George Floyd by a police officer this past May, the B'nai B'rith Board of Directors voted in favor of a resolution that condemns police violence directed at Black Americans and addresses racial tension and human and civil rights in this country. That is why we called on the United States Congress to pass legislation aimed at reforming aspects of police work, including closer cooperation between police and community organizations. The shooting of Jacob Blake last week reminds us that there remains so much work to be done. And that is why your contributions and essays are so important. It is up to us to create a better future for all Americans. We all have a moral duty to make that happen. Your essays all carry the same deeply important message that matters today as much as it mattered in 1963. That intolerance anywhere is intolerance everywhere. You committed loudly to standing against hatred in the world today. Your words describe the impact of bringing kindness and a will to achieve despite all hardships and discrimination. You recognize that prejudice and bigotry is an enemy that can be fought by changing a mindset. That was the case in one of the essays that was one of our winners today. We all have the potential to work in civil harmony to allow human beings to live their best lives without fear. B'nai B'rith International has supported education and awareness projects to educate youth about the importance of promoting mutual respect and equality for all people for decades. We recognize that we must communicate a message of equality for all citizens, regardless of race, religion, national origin, gender, or sexual orientation. Our goal is to destroy prejudices and strengthen the future of our youth through creativity, inspiration, and education. In order to address these issues, B'nai B'rith created 4 different programs to fight discrimination and to promote mutual respect. We created the Enlighten America essay contest in August of 2000, 20 years ago now, in response to violent attacks that had taken place against individuals because of their race, religion, ethnic origin, or sexual orientation. The Enlighten America mission continues since then to promote tolerance and equality, respect and responsibility. Seeing prejudice take shape in the form of violent attacks, we wanted to act as individuals and as an organization to promote tolerance and mutual respect. The program had as its core one of the most basic concepts of life in America, our appreciation for the freedom we enjoy to live as Jews. We recall the promise of President George Washington to the Hebrew congregation of Newport, Rhode Island in 1790. Washington said, and I quote, "For happily the government of the United States gives to bigotry no sanction, to persecution no assistance, requires only that they who live under its protection should deport themselves as good citizens in giving it on all occasions their effectual support." For the last 15 years, we had another initiative promoting these ideas called the Diverse Minds Writing Challenge. This was a scholarship competition that asked high school students to write and illustrate a children's book that told a story of mutual respect, diversity, or inclusion. This was another means to teach these ideas to elementary age children. The winner in each contest received a college scholarship and became a published author. That program saw the publication of 41 original children's books, all on tolerance and inclusion and diversity, some in 2 different languages, English and Spanish, and awarded thousands of dollars in college scholarships and grants. More than 45,000 books were donated to public schools, libraries, and community organizations across the country, and created 55 authors, illustrators who were high school students. Out of Enlighten America, and as a response to the growing anti-Semitism we are witnessing today, this year we created a new initiative called None Shall Be Afraid. None Shall Be Afraid is our flagship response to the world's oldest hatred. Anti-Semitism has grown dramatically on the far right, the far left, and among radical extremist movements, and on university campuses. It includes online incitement and intimidation in traditional and social media, as well as violent attacks against Jews and Jewish institutions around the world. And far from merely being a threat to Jews, anti-Semitism erodes the very fabric of democratic societies. Anti-Semitism appears in many different places and many forms, from the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement and anti-Zionism to anti-Semitism at international bodies like the United Nations and around the world. It's especially important for you students today to recognize and understand what anti-Semitism is and how it takes form, so that you can recognize and help us stop it in its tracks. As part of None Shall Be Afraid, we've created resource one-pagers on the issues and a pledge against anti-Semitism and hate in all forms. And we urge each of you to go to our website to learn more and take this pledge. In the last few weeks and months, besides the violent and horrific attacks against Jews in Muncie, New York, and Jersey City, Pittsburgh, Poway, California, and more, we have also witnessed an uptick in anti-Semitic comments by sports figures and celebrities that promote stereotypes and hatred against the Jewish people. We've urged those making those comments to apologize, but more than that, to educate themselves as to why what it is they are saying is hateful and hurtful. What we have found is many of them say they did not know what they said was anti-Semitic. Recently, when the NFL star Deshaun Jackson shared a quote by Adolf Hitler on social media, he claimed he did not understand how it was hateful. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Zach Banner, and Charles Barkley all publicly responded, calling for an end to intolerance against Jews. They pointed out that if we want to end racial injustice, we must be mutually respectful to all. It goes both ways. We need each other as allies. This is how we will achieve progress in this fight. This is why our programs are so important today. Education is the answer to a respectful world. These programs encourage and teach young people and older people alike and provide them the tools to better understand the context, the history, and the present circumstances of the subject matter. Finally, B'nai B'rith also just joined with the Combat Anti-Semitism movement, called CAM, to create the Students Speak Out Against Anti-Semitism, a creative video production contest. The contest engages students from around the world in a unique public awareness campaign promoting respect and communicating a message of equality. The videos aim to educate about anti-Semitism and the prejudice, bigotry, hatred, and violence that it engenders. The contest is open to high school and undergraduate university students around the world. I encourage you to check out the details on our website. There are cash prizes for the winners, and we'd love to have you participate and share with your classmates. As you saw in the video that began this program, B'nai B'rith has worked hard to promote tolerance, equality, and continuity in the United States and around the world for more than 170 years. And that still drives us to this day. We all have an important role to play in fighting anti-Semitism, fighting racism, and in addressing hatred and intolerance against other marginalized groups. B'nai B'rith recognizes that our fight on behalf of the Jewish people includes the same fight for all religious and ethnic groups to live without fear. How beautiful it is to reflect on this great legacy of cooperation between African Americans and Jews. We owe it to those towering figures like Martin Luther King Jr., John Lewis, Abraham Joshua Heschel, and the untold others, many of whom lost their lives because they had the different color skin, religion, gender, or sexual orientation. To continue this legacy and to ensure that the future is a bright and safe place for people of all races and creeds. Thank you again. Thank you so much, not only for allowing me to address you, but also for your participating in this very important essay contest, especially at this time in our history. Best of luck to you all and a safe and healthy upcoming school year. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan, for your words. At this point, if anybody has questions, please put them into, if you could put them into the Q&A, that would be wonderful. Dan, I wanted to start with, how does B'nai B'rith International, when there is a issue globally, either in the United States or anywhere, where there's one of these issues with discrimination, racism, anti-Semitism, how does B'nai B'rith International work to collaborate with other organizations to address these issues that we keep seeing coming up?
Well, we do it in different ways. If there is, there have been serious threats, for example, and other actions that have been taken, which we have gone to the authorities with. Threatening letters have come in, anti-Semitic letters. So we work sometimes with local authorities. We work with educational authorities and officials. We also are part of a number of coalitions bringing us together. For example, we're a member of the Leadership Conference on Civil Rights. We work with our fellow Jewish organizations in bringing this information together. We speak out if it's overseas. We speak to diplomats who are represented here in the United States and also diplomats at the UN. If there's an incident in France or in Belgium or in Argentina, our B'nai B'rith in those countries will bring these matters directly to the attention of authorities, sometimes law enforcement authorities in their countries. So there are a lot of different ways to do this. We also, of course, use our social media platforms to speak out constantly. I mean, if you look at our Twitter feed and if you look at our website, you'll see, unfortunately, and I say this really so sincerely and with so much regret, but unfortunately, you'll find something almost every day that we've had to speak out on to bring some of these terrible acts of racism and anti-Semitism to the attention of so many others. So there are a lot of different spokes to this wheel, which we use and which we engage in to fight anti-Semitism and racism.
Thank you. Thank you. You spoke about growing up in the 50s and the 60s, and when you were growing up as one of the only Jewish people in your town, did you often feel different? And how can we make sure that those who are different from the rest of us feel accepted, whether it's discrimination based on race, religion, disability, gender, sexual orientation, or even ethnic origin? What can people, and especially what can teenagers and their families do today?
Yeah, this is so important. You know, I wish we had, when I was younger, I wish we had an Enlighten America essay program, or None Shall Be Afraid program, or the Diverse Minds Writing Challenge, these things that I talked about that we do. Because when these programs are brought into the schools and when teachers are taught how to teach about mutual respect, how you convey that, how you are able to speak to young people about it, you're basically making an investment in the future. You're making an investment in bringing more and more people to the fight against anti-Semitism and racism. But we didn't have it then, and but as I said, fortunately we had some good friends. I encountered anti-Semitism as a kid, and my parents, who ran the store, also encountered it. I mentioned the one African-American family. It was the Miller family. Mr. Miller was the manager of one of the local theaters, movie theaters in town. I used to go to the movies, every weekend, every Saturday, and the kids would line up to get their tickets, and I would see Mr. Miller trying to get things organized before the kids went into the theater. And I felt, even at that time, at the age of 10, 11, and 12, going to those movies and seeing Mr. Miller in the lobby of that theater, I felt a very strong bond with Mr. Miller. His wife was one of my parents' customers, and we felt that strong bond. So how much different it might have been if we had these kinds of programs to have kids who don't normally have contact with Jews or with African Americans, with Asian Americans, with others who are at the margins, who feel at the margins. It would have been so much better to be able to have this kind of educational program, because there are large parts of this country where there are no opportunities really for young people to see how diverse a country this really is. You know, we're a very diverse country. We're also a nation of immigrants, and so there are a lot of different folks who came to this country, and so it's very important. Education first. First, being able to educate teachers on how to teach these subjects, and then to get these programs like Enlighten America into the schools. It's so important. It's an investment that this country will reap so many benefits from.
Thank you. I don't really see any other questions coming in, but we have gotten some congratulations from folks that I would like to read out. And at this point, Alex, I'd like to stop the screen share for a minute and ask all the winners to come on, so Dan and I so we can see them all at one time and congratulate them. We have gotten a comment from Shirley Thomas from Edmond, Oklahoma. She's the grandmother of Sophie Thomas, and she's congratulating Sophie. And David and Merle Harwitz, grandparents of Noah, is wishing her well. They're so proud of her. And Rabbi Lenny and Karen Sarko, grandparents of Ilana Levenberg. But I'd like to see, at this point, all the winners, just to congratulate the winners at this point, the students. Okay. We got 5 more students that are online there. We just wanted to take a minute and have you all come up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's one missing. But we are so proud of each and every one of you. We hope that you will check your mailboxes often for your checks, for your prizes, your books, your everything. And at this point, let's turn on our audio and let's give them a huge round of applause. We wish we could be in person to actually hand you the checks and do all that, but that is not possible. So at this point, I want to thank Dan for his inspiring message, and I want to turn over the program to Helen, who will wrap it up with the pledge and some final words.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. It was so important. And if you have any questions, feel free to send your questions to us over time. We want you to know that your involvement in our local lodge is just so important. So please visit us on Facebook, the Atlanta Jewish Connector, our website links through B'nai B'rith International. Any donations to our programs through our PayPal link will be greatly appreciated. We honor the students because they are helping the world over time. We look forward to Zooming with you with social virtual presentations each month. And we hope for your help with our virtual PAL Hanukkah party and with the JF and CS and with our own Pinch Hitters program that's in December. As you see on the screen, we have lots of ways to be connected. So thank you everyone for your time. We're actually ending the program a few minutes early. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A and we can always get back to you. Thank you to the parents and the grandparents and everyone who is supporting us today. Be well, stay well, keep safe, and know that you're always here for you. Bye.
Bye, everybody.